All right, welcome back to the program. Joining me for our conversation right now is Johnson Chukwu, the Group Managing Director at Cowry Asset Management Limited. Mr. Chukwu, good to see you. Welcome to the program. Mr. Chukwu, I can't hear you. I need my audio guys to increase my audio because I can't hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, now I can hear you. So how are you today?
I'm good. I was saying that happy Independence Anniversary in advance.
Yes, we should all at least celebrate for the fact that we are still an entity, isn't it? But let me start by asking you, Mr. Chukwu, where were you in 1960? Let's start from there. Were you among those that were born during the independence or before the independence? Were you among those that were on the streets, as I was told, waving the Nigerian green, white, green flag, national flag, the lowering of the Union Jack, and, you know, taking up the green, white, green flag? Where were you?
I was with the angels in heaven watching you people celebrate Independence Anniversary.
I wasn't there then. I
So,
wasn't.
so I was with the angels in heaven watching Nigerians celebrating Independence Anniversary. So I thought when I come here, it would be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement when I joined the people on earth. But by that time, I was still with the host of heavens.
Okay, so what kind of stories, what kind of memories did your parents tell you about the independence? Because I have a bit of some memories, what my father and my mom told me, you know, during independence. So they were there, they were raising flag. In fact, my dad even told me some things, even after independence. Some, you know, even in the 80s or in the 70s, this was what was happening and all of that. So what were some kind of conversations that you had from your parents about independence?
You know, interesting, the question you're asking me is similar to the question my son came to ask me this morning. He came to me this morning and said he needed to see the pictures of his great-grandparents. So I had to go back to my father's album that is with me, to begin to rummage through some of those pictures. I was able to extract my his great-grandmother's, paternal grandmother's pictures. And then I also saw pictures of Independence Anniversary then. And they were gaily dressed, very happy, very optimistic. They were looking forward to a great nation. The impression they had was that we're going to be one of the leading countries in the world. Of course, we started well at the onset. The country was growing. The prospects and opportunities were enormous. People, Nigeria became, at least parts of Nigeria became some of the fastest growing regions in the world. Citizens were very optimistic. Even when I was born, in the early 70s, when I was a toddler, we still had a lot of optimism about the country. I remember some of the songs we used to sing. We are marching on to take our right among all the nations of the world. I mean, so we were looking forward to a great and prosperous nation. And then for my parents and my grandparents that witnessed the independence anniversary, it was a build-up that they were looking forward that they were going to have a Dorado when the country became independent.
Taking from that, at least in the 70s that you were a toddler, there's this school of thought, however silent it is, but I've heard a lot of people echo it, that those that were born in the 60s or even before the 60s and perhaps in the 70s enjoyed the best of Nigeria. What do you think? Did you enjoy the best of Nigeria? What did Nigeria give you? Like I did an interview last week with Dr. Belihua on a poll, does Nigeria love you? And if you asked some Nigerians that, they may say no, they may say yes. Sometimes I reflect and say, has Nigeria been really good to me as a nation? So speak to me about that.
Okay, for me, interestingly, it's good we're actually reviewing our 60th independence anniversary. Yesterday, I also had a similar discussion with a friend of mine. What I would say is that I enjoyed the bit of Nigeria, and I'll tell you why. I went to public primary and secondary schools. I went to a public university. In the university, when I joined the University of Lagos in the late 80s, the amount I paid in my first year was 108 naira. That included 90 naira for accommodation in the hostel. And the rest were small bits of fees here and there. The university education was completely free as at that time. I joined the University of Lagos when we didn't see free feeding at the cafeteria, but we still saw the equipment that the government was using to feed students. So we missed it by the hairs. But I also enjoyed a few years of bursary from my state government then. They were still giving bursaries, though it was sporadic, but I think we got about 2 bursaries in the during our 4-year study period. I was lucky to be a University of Lagos scholar, so I also enjoyed scholarship from the University of Lagos. I don't know if those things still obtained today. So in effect, our schooling, we are largely at the instance of the federal government, at the university level. The state level was at the secondary and primary school were the instance of the state government. And the quality of education was commensurate with what obtained anywhere in the world. During my time in the University of Lagos, we had students from all parts of the world. We have got Bulgarians, we have South Africans, we have Cameroonians, we have people from different parts of the world studying in the University of Lagos. Today, the reverse is the case. Nigerians are going to study even in Benin Republic, even in Ghana, Togo. And if you are an average citizen, you will not even, you're not likely to send your children to public educational institutions. So we've seen a lot of deterioration in terms of standard of educational standard, in terms of health standards. The medical sector, the University of Ibadan Teaching Hospital was one of the best in the world. So we saw a period when our standards were commensurate with the standards that were obtained anywhere in the world. But unfortunately, we've seen a retrogression in terms of development. We've seen our per capita income decline. We've seen our standard of living decline. When the world is advancing, we have seen deterioration. At some point, when I graduated, and that was not too far ago, I mean, as late as 1992, virtually everybody in my class got admission, got job when we graduated. Nancy, at the time I entered University of Lagos in 1988, there were only 46 of us in accounting department. Today, go to the public universities, you will see 200 people in a single class. I brought out, because I was a class rep, I brought out my list of students that were admitted in University of Lagos accounting department in 1988. There were 46 only. So the lecturers could relate with each and every one of us. But that is not the case. In the hostel where we lived, my room, we were only 3 in the room. So these are no longer the standard you can even imagine. They look like things that we had done that you are referring to some maybe 100 years ago. But unfortunately, while other countries have seen a lot of progression in terms of living standard of the citizens, we seem to have retrogressed, which is unfortunate because we have all the resources, we have the human capital, we have the natural resources that today we should be competing shoulders, we'll be rubbing shoulders with the likes of Malaysia, those countries that have leapfrogged from third world countries to first world countries, Singapore and all the rest. That's where we should belong to, and not to remain stuck in a state of underdevelopment.
You know, I needed to take off from that background because if we're talking about development plans, at least over the years, you talked about attending University of Lagos, of course, public school, went to a public school. I cannot say that for myself. Perhaps University, public school, Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Awka for me. My primary, secondary school were private schools. I schooled at Our Ladies of Apostles Private School in Yaba. That school is still there. I went to Reagan Memorial Baptist Girls Secondary School in Yaba. It's still private, so my parents were paying for me. At Nnamdi Azikiwe University, I entered when, you know, we're paying school fees and all of that. But I can see our second guest is on the line right now. Let me ask him a bit of his own history before we delve into those development plans, because development plans is about comprehensive policies, both social, economic, and all the things involved. Dr. Franklin Ngwu, I can see you right now. Welcome to the program. Dr. Franklin is an associate professor of strategy, corporate governance, and risk management at Lagos Business School. Welcome to the program, Dr. Ngwu. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, Nancy. And how is Abuja?
Abuja is fantastic this morning. At least the weather is a bit nice. Let's talk about, we're talking about development plans since the colonial days till now. I did ask, in fact, I started yesterday because Nigeria will be 60 officially on Thursday. Where were you in 1960? Let's start so that I can get a good sense of history.
That's a very interesting question. Somewhere only known by God.
Okay, so both you and Mr. Chukwu are babies after 1960. So the question to you, isn't it?
I didn't say anything. You said that.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chukwu. Good
Okay.
morning.
Okay, so speak to me about perhaps some of those memories or some of the things that were told to you by your parents or your relatives about independence and how Nigeria was as at that time. And I have a reason for asking to compare that time with now, you know, in terms of development. Speak to me just in a few seconds about okay, you were not born then, what people told you.
What people told me and what I observed as well is that we've had a better country than what we have at the moment with regards to opportunities, with regards to freedom, with regards to unity, with regards to oneness, and with regards to patriotism about the country. So I remember also my uncle that schooled abroad. And when he got back, he had jobs waiting for him. But now, even with a PhD, you have a problem getting a job in Nigeria. So that tells you the shifting that we've experienced. And of course, the level of other challenges that we have, insecurity, unemployment, poverty, they're all increasing. So, of course, we've had some development, but of course, also the challenges are increasing exponentially, and we are growing not at the same rate. So it's a big challenge.
Okay, so let me start now by asking, if we're taking a look at perhaps what both of you have said today on the program, you heard the stories of a better Nigeria. Yesterday, I interviewed two professors here that were born before independence, and they did also give me a sense of their own history at that time. They're also in consonance with you both in terms of they saw a better Nigeria than it is right now. How much of development planning has gone into the metamorphosis of Nigeria from the colonial days till now? Because even during my intro, I recall that the Colonial Act and Welfare Act, or Colonial Development and Welfare Act, during the 40s, established even the University College of Ibadan, which is the first university in Nigeria. You know, so other universities took cue from that. So how important is that the development of that time till now, Dr. Ngwu?
Of course, it's very, very important. I think from that time to now, we've had about 11 development plans. Will I say they are not good? They are very good. But the problem is not really about having development plans. So based on the plans we've had, the outcomes cannot be said to be convincing and encouraging. So that is one aspect. But another issue is that we need to also understand that development plan is like a strategy. And of course, in business school, we normally say that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it will still be hungry. So the question is our development plans that we've had, all these, about 11 of them, are they suitable, amenable, and appropriate for the kind of culture we have in Nigeria? So there is a disconnection between the culture we have and the kind of development plans we've been having. So there's a need to marry sociology, economics, and law in developing a development plan in Nigeria for Nigeria. So that has been the challenge. So when you read, for example, when you read needs, it's quite elaborate, it's quite detailed, it extended to seats for states and leads for local government. But the challenge is that after some time, the whole thing will just go down. We continue again, we come back, we develop another one, we continue. So it's like a continuous cycle. So the challenge is the culture that we have is not suitable for the kind of development plan that we have. So the problem is not with the contents. That's why when it comes to execution and implementation, you have a big challenge. So until we sit back and say, what kind of development plan will work for this kind of society, we will just be going around the circles. Of course, we will achieve some development, but it will not be commensurate with the growth, with the potential, and with everything we have as a country.
Okay, let me bring in, Prof, just hold on a bit. Let me bring in Mr. Chukwu here. Mr. Chukwu, you've heard Dr. Ngwu speaking in terms of it's not just about, it's like we've been going on, perhaps, how do they say that? Is it motion without movement or something? So it seems we've been having motion without movement over the years. Is there a problem with our own kind of development planning? And why is development planning so crucial? You know, because if we take a look at from the years during the colonial masters to the first development plan we had in 62 to 68 or so. Then during the Civil War, General Gowon came up again. The second development plan came into being, the third development plan. Then we started having even democratic governments from the Obasanjo days. Needs, Dr. Ngwu talked about needs that dovetailed into SIDS. We should also know that I think needs was from NEPAD. That's Nigeria and South Africa. I'm just giving a history to our audience. You know, then what else again? Vision 2010, Vision 2020, Transformation Agenda, 7-point agenda, Buhari's 3-point agenda, ERGP, Nigeria 2050. So we've seen, you know, a journey of development plans. But it seems that we are just moving at a snail speed. Mr. Chukwu?
Well, the way I will look at it, Nancy, is that the bane of our development plan is that ability to implement some of the plans. If you look at some of those plans, beyond the plan of 1970 to 1974, that we made provision for nationalization of foreign companies, indigenation decree, or Nigerian enterprise promotion decree, where if you look back now, you could actually say that some of the plans contained in that development plan were not wrong-headed, in the sense that it drove away investment from the country, and that slowed down industrialization or private sector participation in the economy. But if you look at other development plan, from the first development plan of 1962 to 1968, second development plan 1970 to 1974, third development plan 1975 to 1980, fourth development plan 1980 to 1985, you will actually say that, look, the entire objective of those plans were quite altruistic. For instance, the fifth development plan had no provision for an economic growth rate of 4%, a savings and investment rate of 15% of the GDP. The second development plan made provision that the economy will be growing at 7% per annum, that we're going to have, I mean, that was the era of boom, and that we're looking at building infrastructure, rehabilitation of those who were affected by the war, reintegration of those, the segments of the country that were most affected by the war, and several things that were altruistic. Up to the fourth development plan. And interestingly, after that, you had the Babangida's structural adjustment program that did not allow, that in effect replaced the national development plans. And if you also look at that structural adjustment program, it was designed to bring back the private sector into economic, and then pull back the government from active participation in business operations or in operating businesses, and then allow for the liberalization of the economy. And that's when you had the banks come in, the insurance companies came back, allowed foreign investors to buy back some of their original operating businesses. And that opened up the economy. So the challenge you have has not been the quality of the plans, it's been the devil has been in the implementation. And we've seen consistently governments failing to implement the plans as they were designed to be. In some instances, we'll see, in recent past, we've seen very ambitious plans that are not in tandem with the resources available to the government, like the Economic Reconstruction and Growth Plan, where you had so much lofty objectives that we are not in sync with the resources available to the government. But beyond that, the national development plans were very well thought through. Unfortunately, the implementation was where the problem came from. And part of those implementation problems originated from political instability. The first development plan was truncated by the Civil War. The second development plan was a period of excessive government expenditure, what was also truncated by a coup. And then you've seen series of development plan other truncated by coup, like when the military came back and displaced the civilian government in 1983. So you see a lot of interference coming from the political side, beyond the challenge of the bureaucracy implementing some of these plans. But the challenge, the issues we have had is not because we lack the ability to think through where we should position the country. It's probably because we lack the discipline and the grit to see through those plans and implement them to the letters.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Ngwu here to answer this, which is, Dr. Ngwu, out of all those development plans that at least we've enumerated, which do you think has been able to deliver the best dividends to Nigeria's economy in the last few years, at least since 1960? Let's take away the colonial days, at least from 1960 till now. Which one has delivered like the best dividends that we can still see till now?
I think, sorry, I couldn't hear what Mr. Chukwu explained. I think there was a network problem, but can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so based on my own assessment of all the development plans, I think that the one that I would say that has delivered good dividends for Nigeria was the one we had during General Olusegun Obasanjo regime, which more or less related to the needs and in terms of what we've seen, in terms of how the economy grew, in terms of the diversification of the economy, in terms of the involvement of the private sector to participate in the economic development issues. But that, be that as may be, what I'm trying to say is that until we sit back and appreciate the kind of country we have, what we have in Nigeria is what we call a plural society. And we cannot be using a development plan that is suitable for a homogeneous society, for a plural society, and expect good outcomes. So it's more or less like somebody that has malaria, and you are giving the person paracetamol. Naturally, the temperature will go down in the morning, in the afternoon it will go up, then in the evening it will be mixed. And that's what we'll be having in Nigeria, because we'll be using inappropriate development plan for a plural society. And while there is, the culture is not appropriate and the trust is not there, there is nothing you will do that will achieve it. So now we have Nigeria 2050. So the challenge is not about having different development, but sitting back and say, how do we understand the kind of society we have? We must tell ourselves the truth and say, these plans that are centrally planned, that are more or less planned in Abuja, will not work until we appreciate the diversity and the plurality of the country.
Doctor, when you are talking about Nigeria's developmental planning, at least in the last few years, and that we are a plural society. Hello, Doctor, you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yes. When you talked about Nigeria being a plural society and we shouldn't adopt perhaps development plans that are meant for plural societies, the society that came to mind that just hit me was China when you were talking. Because we've seen that China has had development plans over the years, even still now. I think there are even different development plans in China. You have Made in China 2025. They want to increase their domestic content, I think by 2025 or so. I think there's a China Agenda 2050, if I'm not mistaken. In Saudi Arabia, there's an Agenda 2030. COVID-19 is distorting that. Are you saying invariably that we should sit down and carve our own development planning with everybody involved, both the educated and the uneducated, so that Nigeria can work for everybody instead of taking hook, line, and sinker, copying from others?
That is exactly what I'm saying. So if they say that China has a development plan, there is nothing wrong in having a development plan. It is a strategy for the country to develop, to move from point A to point Z or from point A to point D in a given period. So what China and other countries have done is that they've developed a macro development plan, and they've allowed the different regions to execute, to take from there and now start implementing in their different regions as the case may be. Remember also that China is a more or less a very homogeneous society. So you have about 7 to 8% of one tribe dominating the society. But in Nigeria, you have it's a country where you have about 250 ethnic groups and about 3 or 4 dominating. So the question is that unless there is a synergy between the culture of the people and the plan of what you're developing, it cannot work. And that's why Mr. Chukwu is talking about that the challenge is about the implementation of the plan. When you now bring implementation, just as I said, when we do strategy for firms, the first thing we check is the culture of the organization. If the culture is not in line with the vision of the organization, no matter the strategy that you formulate, it will not work. Because there has to be a clear connection between the mission, the vision, the strategy, and the core values of that organization. And when you bring it to a country, it is the same thing. There has to be a vision, there has to be a mission, there has to be core values of that country, which is driven by the culture of the society. Then you now have a plan so that there will be a sense of ownership and responsibility in executing that plan. But what we do in Nigeria is that is how it is done in New York, that is how it's done in Singapore, that's how it's done in Malaysia. And we just copy and bring to Nigeria without taking the stability of the adopted plans to Nigeria. That's number one. The second thing is the plurality of the country to even agree and accept on the plan in terms of execution. So when it starts executing, somebody will say it's for this particular region, particular section, is not for us. And before you know it, the execution will never achieve the result. So if you look at all the development plan, the most recent is the ERGP, Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. It hasn't achieved any of the targets it's set to achieve. We are now having the Nigerian Sustainable Development Plan. It will still not achieve because we haven't taken into consideration the cultural peculiarities of the country and the need to synergize economics, sociology, and law in executing what we need to achieve.
Mr. Chukwu, can you come in here and speak to perhaps what Doctor has spoken about in terms of we should Nigerianize our own development plan and don't copy? But sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can take snippets of bits and pieces, especially where I have worked. Or perhaps Dr. Ngwu is going the way Lee Kuan Yew went. Lee Kuan Yew is Singapore, isn't it? Yes, Singapore. Yes, Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. And just went. But now he's been hailed as a hero, even in death. That is a hero, the legend of Singapore. But at that time he was putting those policies together. Even the West did not agree with him. Mr. Chukwu, where do you stand?
Okay, Nancy, if you look at our development plans, or our national development plans in the past couple of years, there's been a high dose of domestication in those plans. I've looked at the phase development plan up to the 4th development plan. If you look at the 3rd development plan, you saw something like that they wanted to develop an intermediate manpower skill, which was why they started setting up technical colleges to train intermediate manpower. What I said, what I said earlier is that the problem is not in terms of the plan; it is in terms of the implementation. If you look at the development plan, take for instance among the latest one, the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Most of the key elements of that plan could actually be said to be homegrown. The issue of improving power supply, issue of creating employment, issue of infrastructure. But what was lacking is there was no clearly defined strategy to achieve some of those plans. And I'm referring particularly to the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. If you said you wanted to create 15 million jobs, you need to define which sectors of the economy you want to create those jobs. And I think what we need to do, we need to have an overarching national objective, which is what a lot of countries have. How do you want to position your country? How do you want to be recognized? When you have an overarching national objective, which you call, in that case, it becomes our primary national objective. We want to be respected in the world. We want to be a global economic powerhouse. Some countries have set out to be global economic powerhouse. And then you say, how do we want to position our economy in that respect? And the first thing you need to look at, what are the structures of the economy we have today? We have a large populated country. So for you to be a globally recognized economic powerhouse, you need to create economic opportunities for your citizens. And that will mean that the Nigerian economy should be an economy that's oriented towards manufacturing. Once you define that, you now look at what kind of educational system will fit into a manufacturing economy. You need to have a strong dose of technical competencies. So you need to have an educational curriculum that will train people to have reasonable level of technical competence. Then you now look at what kind of infrastructure will support
Mr. Chukwu,
manufacturing hub.
Mr. Chukwu, if you can hear me, let me just butt in here a bit. What you're saying has been in different development plans of the country in terms of, okay, take a look at Vision 2020, and I hope Dr. Tong is still there with me to listen so that you can also weigh in. If you take a look at Vision 2020, which was launched, I think, under President Yaradua, but had its foundations during President Obasanjo. During President Obasanjo, we had Vision 2010 and all of that. It seemed that even in the 90s, 2010 was like, oh, it was like 500 years away, or 2020 like 500 years away. Here we are. Those things were in Vision 2020. We've launched Nigeria Agenda 2050. In fact, when we launched it, what came to my mind, I was discussing with some people at home. I said, what exactly are we doing in this country as if we are just moving like trains that don't have a compass? Have we audited Vision 2020? In fact, when I was speaking with a friend of mine who was a former minister during Obasanjo's days or so, he told me, he said, Nigeria Vision 2020 was like, it was almost dead. It was dead on arrival. I'm like, really? So, do you understand what I'm saying, Mr. Chukwu? Because I see you smiling.
Let me take it from there.
Mr. Chukwu, are you there? Okay, Dr. Ngwu, if you heard what I said, perhaps you can come in here.
Okay.
Could you just recap what you said, please, Nancy?
Okay, I think Mr. Chukwu is also back. What I was actually saying was that what Mr. Chukwu did say in terms of let's have education, let's train our children, let's have an economic growth of this, all those things are in those economic or development plans. Vision 2020 they had. All those things were there. Vision 20, all those things were there. So what are we missing? There's a Nigeria Agenda 2050 now. ELGP, they had, is it 7% economic growth, food security, there's, you know, so please come in, because I really don't even just know what to say.
Okay.
Mr. Chukwu, I'll come back to you in a bit. Dr. Ngwu. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, Dr. Ngwu, go ahead, please.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say, I think maybe I've not really explained my earlier submissions. I think in terms of the question you asked me earlier on, which development plan did we really achieve the greatest impact? I was mentioning the recent development plans, but if we take it back from 1948, 60, you will agree that the time we had the best time was when we had the regional governments. So what is missing in what we have is in
Dr. Ngwu, hold on, did I hear you right? Did you say when we had it the best was when we had dictatorial government? Is that what you said?
Regional.
Okay.
Regional. So that was the time we had OAU, that was the time we had Ibadan, that was the time we had ABU, Zaria, UNN, and other universities. So what I'm trying to say, what is missing in all the development plans, once you go through all of them, they are very good in terms of contents. But what is missing is to say, Southwest, take the development plan and go and domesticate it within your region to make it work for you. Northwest, domesticate it within your own region because of the homogeneity of this place or these regions to ensure ownership and responsibility. So when you do it across the different regions, we tried it before and it was working. So we can actually rethink it and examine it and say, how can we make it better to work? Because as I said before, research has shown that culture and development are more or less the same thing. That is why we call norms and values are more or less, when you document them, it becomes the Lego system of a society. So what is missing from Vision 2010, Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, seeds, needs, all of them is because we've not really properly inserted culture into it. And when we're studying culture, we have to understand the plurality to say Southwest is different, Southeast is different, North Central is different, Northeast is different, Northwest is different. It will be a macro one. But when you now want to execute it, it will be executed or even re-examined or reviewed in line with regional peculiarities. A typical example is UK. You have Scotland, you have England, you have Wales, and you have Ireland. These are regions that make up what we call United Kingdom. What you see in Glasgow is almost the same thing as what you see in Manchester, but the execution is owned and done by Scottish people, or by English people, or by Irish people, or by Welsh people. That's exactly what I'm saying in Nigeria. If the same thing in the US, the same thing in India, the same thing in Brazil. So the idea of having a unitary development plan prepared in Abuja and expect Abuja to execute it, it will not work in Nigeria because we are a plural society. So that's exactly what I'm trying to explain all this while, that we need to say, these people that are here, you guys go and take it and execute it, because it is your own, and you can know how best to review it, to redesign it, to suit your own peculiarities. So the education we need in the East might be different from the education they need in the West, the education they need in the Northeast, or the education they need in the Northwest. So having one type of education, one type of housing, one type of road network, it will not work. That's exactly what I'm trying to explain.
Okay, Mr. Chukwu, come in here so that you can answer the question I had asked earlier. If you have something to say, or has Dr. Ngwu encapsulated your thoughts?
No. I actually, what I was saying is this. Part of the plan is that we have a vision. A vision is the overarching objective, which said, I want to be here at so and so period of time, like the Vision 2020, which said we want to be among the year 2020. That is not sufficient in itself. You need to now drill it down to what are the strategies you need to adopt to achieve that vision, to achieve that top 20 economy in the world. That will integrate what Dr. Ngwu had just said, that you need to also drill it down and move it to the different implementation stages or localities. But beyond that, your overall vision must have strategies for implementation or execution. It must have deliverables. And those are the things that are lacking in our vision. Like I said, what we have are rosy and sexy dreams of where we should be. How you want to get there is always lacking in that document. The details is, they tell you the devil is in the details. And I'll tell you, let me bring it down, let me bring it home so that we understand it clearly. And as I was saying earlier, if you want to be a top 20 economy in the world, that means your GDP must leapfrog from about 27th or 26th in the world to about 20 in the world. So you have to grow your GDP to a certain level or by a certain magnitude. Which sectors of the economy will contribute to that growth? Or where do you have strong growth opportunities that will lead to that growth? How do you stimulate those sectors to grow faster? What resources will those sectors require in terms of human capital, in terms of infrastructural support? Where will those industries that will drive that growth be located? And then that's where you now talk of that you now need to localize those primary objectives. If, for instance, we are saying, look, we need this level of human capital, which is what China did. China went out of their way to train to have very quality educational system, and India has also adopted the same route. The quality of education is what is driving innovation in India and China. If you don't have that, and you want to be an innovative economy, you're not going to be that. It just becomes a pipe dream.
Okay, Mr. Chukwu, I have to halt you here. Let's quickly take a break. When we come back, we'll be going into the concluding part of this interview as we are x-raying Nigeria's development plans from 1960 till now. Please continue to send your comments to us on social media. We'll be right back.
Nothing is more important than our children. Parents, the health of your children is in your hands. Don't send them out without ensuring that they are safe. As children prepare to return to school, what have you done to keep them protected? When it's time to resume, protect your child and others with CAS 3-in-1 Protection Pack. It comes with a medically approved face shield, a 100% cotton face mask, and a portable hand sanitizer spray approved by NAFDAC. Place your order and it would be delivered to your doorstep by FedEx courier service anywhere in Nigeria at no extra cost. Call our 24/7 call center at 09-904-1000 or visit our website at casppe.com.ng. CAS 3-in-1 Protection. Protect others to protect yourself.
African Economic Congress, this year celebrating its second edition, will see debates concerning key issues in African economies, holding with the theme Post-COVID-19, Africa in the New Economic Order, with over 30 local and international speakers. Be part of the largest business event in Africa from the 2nd to the 4th of November 2020 via broadcast television stations and digital platforms. AEC welcomes government institutions, businesses to showcase their products and services during the Congress. For inquiries, please contact 0907-3703-649 or 0906-6912-600 or email events@aecongress.org. Registration is now open on the website www.aecongress.org. Join us at the 2020 virtual edition of the African Economic Congress.
All right, welcome back. Let's quickly conclude our discussion on development planning in Nigeria. Dr. Ngwu, let me come to you right now, and let's take a look at I tried as much as possible to even identify what Nigeria stands for or what we stand for as Nigerians, and I seem not to find it. I may be wrong. I seem not to find it, but if we're taking a look at countries like even Rwanda in Africa, countries like Ghana, then the United States, you will actually articulate what they stand for. As we plan Nigeria 2050, let it not just be another plan that is being articulated by a government. What and what should we be doing?
I think the first thing we need to do is that the leadership of the country need to sit back and say, what kind of Nigeria do we want? The leadership and other stakeholders. In the sense that once we don't have a national consensus or vision or values that are central to us, it will be difficult. So if you monitor what is going on at the moment, you find out that there is a big challenge with regards to competition for power in Nigeria. So that seems to be the main focus. However, if we have the right leadership, the focus should be on competition for development. So until we sit back and say, what kind of country do we have? Whether we have Vision 2000, whether we have Vision 2200, it will not work until we do this. And doing that will require us to really appreciate the peculiarities of this country. And say, let me just mention something that happened recently. Of course, we have a mining development plan in Nigeria, which is with Ministry of Mines but last week, Governor of Cross River State questioned it and said it will not work because there is no way you'll be in Abuja and issue a license for mining while them in Cross River is not aware or is not properly incorporated. That is exactly what the issue with development plans in Nigeria. So for us to achieve this Vision 2050 or Nigeria 5050 and all that, what we need to first of all sit back and say, how do we want to govern this country? Because it's very, very important. Until we sit down and agree and say, we cannot continue with this too much power at the center and see how we can devolve power to the states, to the local government, to the more power actually, and now have a loose center so that the approach will be competition for development. So when they do it in the southeast, southwest will say they want to do it, north central will say they want to do it, northeast will say they want to do it, and there will be competition for development. Until we do that with a leader who is visionary, who is thinking, who is patriotic, now we create that unification of the country. We cannot. The presidency recently agreed and said that the PNB inherited a terribly divided country. So it is even acknowledged that we have a divided country. So the question is, how can you have a development plan when you have a divided country? So the first thing is, how do we sit back and say, what are the things that we're supposed to do to unify the country? One, by having inclusive government. Two, by ensuring that everybody in Nigeria, in all sections of it, feel part and parcel of the country. Three, by saying that there is that promotion of unity and inclusiveness in government policies, actions, and inactions, so that people can start. At the same time, the governors in the different states also need to appreciate their relevance and their contribution to the economic development of the country.
Okay, let me bring you in here. Even as we discussed Nigeria to develop, have in mind that it seems that development has also moved away from good stating economic indicators like GDP, total goods and services, GNP, both residents in and out and all of that. So as we're looking at Nigeria 2050 agenda, what is the coloration, or what should be the coloration? Dr. Ngwu has alluded to that, but in your own view, what is the government not doing right now that it should do? Should it also gather, because there was a central working group, I think some months ago, was it in July or so, for this Nigeria 2050 agenda. Like for 2020, Vision 2020, they gathered more than 500 economic experts and co for that. So is it that kind of thing we should be seeing now? Or what exactly are we not doing that we should do now? Very quickly, because we're about to end the show.
Okay, what I think we're not doing right is in terms of articulating our primary objective as a nation. And and how we want to compete in the Committee of Nations, how we want to position the country as a competitor for global economic resources, global resources in all ramifications. And I'll tell you why. Today, as a country, we have a political and fiscal structure that does not incentivize hard work. And what we have seen is our political framework is such that allows, encourage people to go cap a hand to the center to collect handout on a monthly basis. We really have to discard that. If we have to, which is in tandem with what Dr. Ngwu had just said, if we have to grow this country, if we have to develop this country, we need to devolve powers to the units or the confederating units so that development is built at that level. Because key thing today is that the world is no longer talking, like rightly said, it's no longer a matter of GDPs. What is the quality of life? What is the standard of living of the country? What is the level of human capital development in that country? And that is what matters today. And when you measure those matrices, we are far behind the global standards. So we really can't continue the way we're going, where resources are centralized and then shared on a monthly basis. And that's, the truth is that if I sleep out in my house every day and I get the same level of income that you earn, I don't need to step out of my house. All I just need is take my bath and go to the gym, and after that go to Ikoyi Club to go and play golf or go and play lawn tennis or whatever, and then come back home and just have my fun, which is what's happening in some states. We really need to devolve power to the federating units, and then build an economic and social structure that from the base, from the foundation, the structure we have today would not allow us to develop. No country develops where the incentive system encourages people to be indolent, to go cap in hand at the center, collect money on a monthly basis and share. It does not also allow us to hold people who are in position of authority accountable, because they are basically coming to give us handouts from what they get from the center. We need to address that. That is the foundation, that is fundamental to our economic growth. We need to restructure the polity to a framework that allowed for economic growth.
Gentlemen, I think we'll need to leave it at that. You've said quite a lot this morning, talking about development plans. Nigeria 2050 is the latest, which is like 30 years' time. God willing, we'll all be here in 30 years' time. And I hope and pray that I will still not be saying and take a look at memory lane and say, I discussed this in 2020, Nigeria 2050. Let's all do better. Thank you very much, Dr. Franklin Ngwu, for joining me today. And thank you, Mr. Chukwu, for joining me, too.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
All right, I've been speaking with Johnson Chukwu, who is the Group Managing Director of Cowry Asset Management, and Dr. Franklin Ngwu, an Associate Professor of Strategy, Corporate Governance and Risk Management at Lagos Business School. Thank you all for investing your time with us today. Please join us again tomorrow as we continue our journey to 60 years, Nigeria at 60. I am Nancy Nnaji. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye now. Thank you for watching our video. Please hit the subscribe button below, turn on post notification to follow all our updates.